Hi, my name is Arturo Ramos, and I work for the Yuma County Library in the teen department at Foothills Library. Today we're actually going to be going over horror game lore, and yeah, there's a specific video game we're probably going to cover the most today, and that's going to be Resident Evil Village. But yeah, let's see how scared we get with this.
Okay, so let's get started. So when it comes to horror game lore, we are going to be talking about Resident Evil Village. Of course, we're talking about Resident Evil Village only because the fact that is the latest when it comes to the storyline of the Resident Evil franchise. There is quite a bit of games, movies, plays, and books written about the storylines, but of course we're going to be going over the latest. I will try and go over some of the games and other storylines when it comes to Resident Evil. I did make a timeline so you guys can see, and then of course under games and books I did list them as well, all in order, so you can see kind of the main storylines that you'll just need in order to follow on to the main story. Of course there's multiples of other stories when it comes to Resident Evil because there's side stories when it comes to the characters, and there's quite a bit of characters. But of course I am going to go over Resident Evil Village because that's the latest when it comes to the franchise. We're going to be going over the virus of how it originally started, the timeline. Of course, you're going to see the characters in Resident Evil Village that they're going to be using, and kind of like a bit of the plot of the game, and then the other games and books that you can, of course, that are listed from the timeline, and then of course resources where you can actually go and look for some of the books that we do have here in case you wanted to pursue it even further. So let's get started. So the first things first is the virus. Now you can see that there's the virus, and then there's a list of 4 other viruses underneath, and then mold, and then of course the specific name for the mold. That's because the original, to start the entire franchise off, was actually called the progenitor virus. That was the original virus that started it all back in Raccoon City by Umbrella Corp. Umbrella Corp is a pharmaceutical company that was actually trying to find a way to save handicapped people by finding a medicine to help them regenerate cells in their body. But unfortunately, of course, it did not work out so well, and it thus created the progenitor virus. Now, a lot of people get it confused because they see like the Tyrant virus or the T. Veronic viruses. Now, so they are all the progenitor virus. They're just different strands or different ways that the virus was distributed to the people. Like the Tyrant virus got mutated on a different strand and actually made them into superhuman giants. That's why you hear about Mr. X and even Tyrants, which are these big, brutish, zombie-looking characters that are very scary in the game. Well, of course, we got like the G virus and the NET virus when it comes to the different variants. But when it came to the new game, to Resident Evil Village and even Resident Evil 7 Biohazard, it is mold. And a lot of people were wondering why they changed it into mold. Well, it was actually because the progenitor virus came from a flower. And what people don't realize is the flower, I'll later explain to you, is that they found the original location where it grew and the mold that grew there with it. So that's why thus in this game, the mold is actually a way to infect people. Now, there is a character that we're going to be going over in the next slide. She actually experiments with the mold and creates the Kadao parasite, which is that jar right there you can see. She decided to try and see if she could find a way to make immortality or bring back somebody from the dead using that mold or Kadao parasite. So you could see that's why those two are separated. Not just the fact that one's an actual virus and then the other one is a mold, but also the fact that the mold isn't from the progenitor virus. They're both from the same location, but not from the same extract. Of course, so this is the timeline I decided to put up for Resident Evil in case you wanted to go pursue. These are both games and books, and in their order of when they were published, so they are in order of what to read and get through as well. Of course, when I get to the game section after our next couple of slides, it has the list. Of course, you can go back to the video and then see the list, so if you wanted to get their exact names and everything like that. So, okay, so the characters for Resident Evil Village, we're going to start on the bottom. We have Ethan Winters, Rosemary Winters, and Mia Winters. Now that is actually the image of the family behind here. You play as Ethan Winters, and Mia Winters, your wife. You only see her for a little bit at the beginning of the story, because at the very first Resident Evil 7 game, she was the whole reason you were trying to find her in the first place. But the main story is mostly about Ethan Winters and Rosemary Winters, his daughter. His daughter ends up having a strand of that mold, of the Kadao, but she never changes. And so now the villains, Mother Miranda, who's the main villain, wants your daughter to try and figure out a way to achieve immortality. So she thus takes your daughter, and as Ethan Winters, you have to go save your daughter back. So at that point, you need to go against her 4 horsemen, Lady Demetro, you got Heisenberg, Moreau, and of course Benvenuto. The next slide I'm going to show you exactly what each of the images are. Of course, we have Demetro right on the right hand side. Moreau is going to be on the bottom left. We got Heisenberg on the bottom right, and of course Benvenuto on the top left. And of course, right in the center we have Mother Miranda herself. So you can see kind of the images of how scary each one of these characters are. What makes these characters so unique is the fact that Mother Miranda decided to use the Kadal to alter them, but they had just so much strong connection with the Kadal that it didn't change them into Lycans or monsters per se. They were able to keep somewhat of a human form, and it was the closest that Mother Miranda got to trying to achieve immortality. So hopefully you guys can pick up the game or get the books and read just exactly how the story ends. I don't want to go too far into it when it comes down, so that you guys can experience it yourself. It is a truly terrifying thing. Of course, here's the list of games and books. So in case you wanted to check it out, of course I highlighted the 2 that the main story will go to if you needed to follow that, which would be Biohazard and Village. The rest of the list and the books you can go to. Also, here's the links of resources if you wanted to get our resources here at the Foothills Library or the county libraries, if you wanted to download our ebooks and such. Yeah, so thank you so much for listening.
Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys didn't get too scared from watching this. I know I probably did. But yeah, definitely come on in. We can see if you like any more scary things here. We can try and see if we can find some books or games that you guys can enjoy here at the library. Thank you again.